Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. Good to see your smiley faces. We'll get started in just a minute. Can everyone see my screen okay? See the presentation? Okay, great. Awesome. So you're here for the PIP workshop and tonight, which is PIP stands for Parent Involvement Partnership. And so there's a council that supports our school. And then we also just do these workshops throughout the year, finding new ways to do them during COVID and hopefully be in person soon. So anyway, thanks so much for everyone for potentially wanting to be a part of this, coming to learn more. Tracy and I will be sharing with you more about how to be a sub, and we have great resources in the room with us in this virtual room that have been subbing, some for many years, some every day this week. And so we are so appreciative, and it is the way we're going to stay floating this year. So thank you very much for being a part. I'd like to just do some introductions first. And so here is the staff at their picture at the beginning of the year. And so Tracy is here with me. Tracy, gosh, how long have you been at the school, Tracy? 1,462 years?
At least that long. I think about 15, actually.
Is it been 15? Isn't that incredible?
A family
as a
and
parent,
a staff member,
yeah. So why don't you tell them a little about you, Tracy?
Okay, great. Hi, I'm Tracy Pickman Yates. I live in Sycamore down at the woods end of the building, and I am the sub coordinator. So hello. If you are going to be serving in this position, you'll primarily be hearing from me, and I'm super excited to get everybody on board and up to speed on how to support us, and I'm super grateful for all of you being here.
Yeah. So she'll be giving you your contact information in the chat. If you're on a computer, you'll see the chat. It's that little box. There's a square and a triangle and a circle in the far right corner. And to the left of that is a little message box. If you click on that, you can open up the chat and you'll see some things. Tracy's also going to be looking over the chat as we meet together tonight. So if you have questions that pop up, or you can always raise your digital hand, which is right in the middle of the bottom of the screen, or you can just unmute yourself and talk if you want to do that too. So any of those ways are fine. This is very informal. This is to help you to know how to be in the building this year if you're able to come in and sub. So we just want to, spend this next hour with you and give you as much information as we can. And so don't hesitate to ask a clarifying question or let us support in any way. So do we have any PIP Council members on the call today? Haven't really looked at who's here, but maybe not. I don't see any in the list. So I always like them to share. And then if you would, raise your digital hand. So if you see next to where the little chat is, to the left of that is some little people. If you click on that, you can see everyone's names of who's with us so far today. And if you would, raise your digital hand if you have a child in the early childhood program. So in the 3 to 6 program, just kind of helps us to know who's in the room with us today. So it looks like we have 4 or 5 of us today that are have children in the early childhood. Okay, feel free to keep your hand up if you also have a child in 6 to 9 in the lower elementary, or raise your hand if you have a child in the lower elementary. Okay, some more hands are popping up. So it looks like about 11 of us. Thank you. And then if you have a child in the 9 to 12 or the upper elementary in the gemstones. Great, about 6 of us there. 7. Thank you. And in the 12 to 14 age level are the islands, monsoon or typhoon, about 6, great. Awesome. And then the woods, the 14 to 18-year-olds. All right, well, it's pretty spread out all throughout the building. That's fantastic. So sometimes when we do this, some of us are nervous about certain levels of the building. We're like, oh gosh, I would be really worried about being in the early childhood or in the teens program. And, you know, so we want to help you to feel comfortable because I know that when I've heard from people that have subbed, and I'm going to ask some of you that have subbed before if you'd like to share something. I see Catherine has raised her hand. Do you want to have a question or a comment, Catherine?
No, I'm sorry.
You still had your hand up.
I just still had it up.
No
Sorry.
worries, no worries. I thought about that as soon as I said it. Sorry, I was like, oh no, she's going to be mortified. So I'd love for anyone that's on the call that's been subbing for a while to unmute yourself and share a little bit of your story. And I know that from many of the subs that we've had, they've worked in many levels throughout the building and could probably give you some really good knowledge. So anybody?
I'll go. I didn't raise my hand this time.
That's great.
Yeah. I have subbed at all the levels in the school. We started 2 years ago at Community Montessori, and it's different at every age level. But it's doable. The fact that you're not by yourself is my favorite thing. Like you're really there as a support person. And once I understood that role better, it became a lot more enjoyable for me because I didn't have the pressure of actually running the classroom versus in a public school that a more traditional, a different kind of public school, like in Clarksville school system, where you are alone and managing that classroom by yourself. The team teaching method in the Montessori school is a lot easier to sub in.
So such an important point. Thank you so much. That was so helpful. Thanks. Joe? You're muted, Joe. Sorry if you're talking. Sorry.
There we go. Hit the wrong button.
Got it.
Very much the same. I've subbed, well, with the exception of last year for 5 years. I don't think I've ever subbed at the high school level, but every other group. And as Catherine said, it's certainly enjoyable and not always that difficult being in the supporting role. So obviously there's someone there at all times when the sub is not sure to ask and say, please, this is happening, but I'm not sure how to handle it. Can I pass it along to you, or please give me some guidance on what to do?
Absolutely. Good points. Thanks a lot. Anybody else? Carrie, Andy, anything else? Okay, well, I won't put you on the spot, but we have some super subs on here, and we're great. We're very grateful. So, I would love if you're open to have some of you read. We've got some quotes that we'll be sharing throughout our time together. Anyone feel moved to read this one to the group? Go ahead, Amanda. Thank you.
Absolutely. Changing the paradigm of the way most of us were in school and what was expected by teachers. Being conscious of what we teach. Dr. Tarsby.
Thank you so much. And so some of you have heard me talk about this book, Dr. Shivali Sabari, Conscious Parent. She's also done a couple of other books. I forgot the name of her second and third book right now. If anyone knows it, drop it in the chat. But anyway, she, talks a lot about the things that we do at our school. And so, when you first arrive at Community Montessori, you often notice things that are different from a more traditional school. And so, and we like to be different, and not just to be different, but we like to be really conscious and thoughtful. And I was just on a level meeting with the teen staff, and we were having this whole conversation about how do we change everyone's schedules, because if we did this one thing, it would probably help the teens better. And it was, I can tell you, I was in traditional schools that just wasn't a common thing that happened, because you just didn't always get that chance to collaborate. So I was, there's just a difference. And not that we're better or someone else is worse or anything like that. It's just, it's a whole different way of being and why we do what we do. So, and so we're going to try to share some of that. Most of you know it that are on the call, but maybe haven't thought about it from an assisting role in the studio. So preparation of the adult is a big part of that. Anyone feel moved to read this part? Go ahead, Joe.
I'll read.
Thanks.
The child builds his inmost self out of the deeply held impressions he receives, from Dr. Maria Montessori.
Yeah, and maybe some of us on the call even remember that as a child, how someone reacted to us or responded to us, sometimes helped us to craft who we were, good or bad. And so we do take it really, really serious about, how we work with children, and what our role is with them. Somebody feel moved to read the first part of this? Go ahead, Melissa.
We must help the child to act for himself, will for himself, think for himself. This is the art of those who aspire to serve the spirit. Education for a new world.
Thank you. Brooklyn, you want to read the second part?
All right. The mind takes some time to develop interest, to set in motion, to get warmed up into a subject, to attain a state of profitable work. If at this time there is interruption, not only a period of profitable work lost, but the interruption produces an unpleasant sensation, which is identical to fatigue. Maria Montessori.
So some of you might be going like, what? And others of you are maybe really leaning into some of this. And if you have a thought, we'd love to hear it. When I heard the first part of this, the act for themselves, will for themselves, think for themselves. So Glenn and our grandchildren, Cal and Jude, just started the school this year. So seeing our oldest, who started here at the age of 5, graduate from here, then her 2 children are now at the school as 3-year-olds. It is a beautiful, beautiful thing. But watching my 3-year-old grandson, they're twins, learning how to do the pincer grasp of a what's that called? The clothespin. And so he was trying so hard to put this on the clothesline, this little washcloth. And he would, of course, use the bigger part and just try to stuff it in. And, he kept, conferring with the teacher, and the teacher came over and gave him a lesson and showed him how to pinch it and then put it on. And then she took it back off again and handed it to him. And he looked at her like, why did you do that? You finished it. I wanted to be done with this. Why did you mess it up? And, you could just tell, with the little mask on, his eyes. And so he's like, okay, I'll do this again. And in the process of this and watching, once he got it and this joy on his eyes, and then he went over and got more clothespins and put more up. And that process, I don't ever remember having that feeling as a child, that feeling of success, that feeling of acting for myself. And to watch that as we start that with children, at birth, up at our infant toddler program. And then in addition to that, the second part that Brooklyn read to us is that non-interruption, right? And so someone didn't come over and say, okay, you have to move to the next center now. Someone didn't say, okay, it's time for everyone to have snack, right? They have these long periods of uninterrupted time. And for some of you, you may have never been in a room before, you just want to engage with them. You want to interact with them. And it's just different what we do. Does anyone that's done this before have anything to share that might be helpful to the group? Go ahead, Amanda.
Thanks, Barbara. So I've actually never personally subbed at Community Montessori, but I did work with Bright Horizons, who, of course, is very much a very much Montessori-based school system, and I can attest to the fact that I had 1-year-olds who, you know, we put cereal in front of them, and they would have to try and string the cereal on the spaghetti noodle or whatever thicker noodle we had if they needed that extra assistance, and just kind of seeing them light up at being able to do that and wanting to just do it over and over again.
Yeah.
And I can truly attest to the fact that once children are given the tools and they are kind of shown or it's demonstrated, they definitely take off more quickly and more adaptly with that versus just kind of doing the recite and recall.
Good point. Thanks, Amanda. Go ahead, Tracy.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to this because I think this can be one of the hardest things for us adults, and it's that observation piece. And so as the adult in the room, the sub, or even if you're just the teacher in the space, being able to wait and observe can be really difficult, especially for us who, you know, want to fix things, or you see something going a different way. So just know, that's the biggest part of what we do is observe and learn. And so I just really feel like, I don't know, I just wanted to say that's one of the biggest things to keep in mind is that observation piece. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So important. So very important. So, and this kind of share some of that, the adult supports, and we should, you know, bullet 3 here, observing versus staring. I know a parent said to me one time, they're like, I know I'm supposed to observe, but sometimes the kids just look at me like I'm creeping them out. I just don't know what the difference is. I'm not sure how to do that part. And, you know, and really, I think the parents on the line that have done this before can tell you that the more you do it, the more natural that process becomes, because they recognize that you have a sense of respect and they build a sense of trust with you. And it becomes just an authentic presence instead of you know, catch them doing something they shouldn't be doing, or, you know, leaning over them in a way that might distract them. And so, you know, as you get more comfortable in the environment, they'll get more comfortable with you. And then there's this, oh gosh, I meant to drop that. Can you drop that into the chat, Tracy, if you get a chance, that communication hints handout? It's on that classroom assignment that just went out today. So this woman, Maria Conti, who did a workshop at our school many years ago, and we took the work that she had done and kind of created this communications handout. So instead of, you know, we try not to say things like "good job," obviously, and sometimes even with our new teachers who have been taught that, we encourage them to say "good gracious, thanks for sharing that with me," right? If that's a thing for you, that not being able to say "good job," coming up with some little keywords that you can say instead of, like "golly gee willikers," you know, and it just helps you to prevent that. Helping versus hindering. You know, when I was watching Jude struggling with that clothespin, the teacher was just watching. They were staying close. They were really waiting for him to ask for help instead of just going in, or making it so that every time he struggles, the adult's right there fixing it, right? And so that knowing, the only way you know that is by observing, like Tracy was sharing, is to watch and to figure out, new teachers in a class, sometimes I'll notice that the process of how they prepare the environment, if the children are all coming to them all day long, something's out of balance, right? And so we want to make it so that the environment can, you know, support itself. And so if they're coming every time they're out of washcloths, well, then they have to come to the adult. Then I don't have enough washcloths in the room. Go ahead, Brooklyn.
I wanted to say what helped me a lot when I was in training to get used to observation. It was really uncomfortable for me at first. I started doing it at home with my own child, and it made it a lot easier once I got into the classroom. Because you start to kind of pick up on what am I observing for? What kind of notes am I taking? What should I be paying?
Yeah. Good point. Thank you. Brooklyn just had a new child, and one of her children is at the school and has finished her Montessori training. So we love that you're on the line, and we can't wait till you've had enough time to rest to be in the building. So thank you. Also, talking versus nagging. We don't want you to feel like children have to be busy all day. But we also want to help you to know what it is that you're seeing, and sometimes just asking a child, so what are you trying to practice today? When we ask that in a very authentic way, instead of being like, okay, what work are you going to do? They'll get to know right away that you're someone that they want to be around or they don't want to be around. If they feel like, oh, there's that person, they're going to ask me what I need to do or what I have to do, and so forth. So really trying to be conscious of the way that we're communicating. Encouragement versus praise. Again, it is hard the first few times if you haven't found the balance in that, to be able to, when a child just put together all the tiles from 1 to 100 and they are so excited and they show it to you and all you can think of is you want to say good job, like this is amazing what this child just did. And instead saying to them like, oh my gosh, how did that make you feel? Which was the hardest part? And they're like, the 9s. Like, oh, the 9s. I remember that being hard when I was younger. Oh, what made you figure it out? How did you do it? And so sometimes they'll tell you the pattern that they figured out. And it's just that whole genuine, authentic part of that. Go ahead, Tracy.
Yeah, just to share, just a strategy that I've learned over time to get away from that praise side is asking questions. Asking questions can always help you just avoid getting into that trap of wanting to kind of move forward. And it brings you into that moment with that child a little bit more too, so that you're invested in that conversation. So it works in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And those questions that are open-ended, that you're not looking for one right answer to, but it's just a conversation starter, super important. Yeah, absolutely. Listening versus being heard. Sometimes if you're in an environment where it's really busy, there's a lot of things happening. There's children that are trying to tell you a story. You're seeing that there was a big water spill. You're feeling like you want to go over and make sure that process is safe. And they're telling you this story about their baby sister at home. And, it is okay to say like, you really want to tell me about your baby sister and I really want to hear about it. And right now I have to leave you to go make sure that we have safety over by the water spill. Can we talk about it when we go outside in a few minutes, right? So in a child that's really upset, their mask is all wet, they just sneezed, and they're really frustrated, and just saying to them, you're really frustrated, and you wanted to wear that mask, and now you need to change to the other mask, and you really want to wear this mask, and you're just really listening and hearing them, and being present with however their feelings are. Our role isn't to try to make children happy. Our role isn't to try to make them not miss home. It's just to be present with them and help them to work through really good, appropriate emotions. Gain respect versus demanding respect. It hasn't happened in a while, but every so often we'll have a new parent comes in and says, I really want them to call all of you all Mr. and Mrs. I don't get this first name business. And I think it shows respect when they call someone Mr. and Mrs. And, I'll say to that person, I hear you, and you can have that thought. We just feel differently. Like I've seen lots of people through my life in traditional school that used Mr. and Mrs., but it wasn't respectful, right? If respect comes from within, it doesn't come from a name. And so, really helping young people to know, and part of that really starts from us. It's building that trust with them before we start to expect something from them. So it takes a little time. Does anyone know what normative culture means? Has anyone heard that term before? Give it a shot. Go ahead, Amanda.
So the way that it was explained to me and that I understood it was that it just mirrors everyday life. So of course, we don't go to our parents and say sir, ma'am, maybe. Sometimes we might say mom or dad, or we might even address them by their first name. So just as close to normal everyday life as possible.
Okay.
Is really what that means.
Okay. And sometimes a normative culture develops even when we don't want it to. Has anyone ever noticed that when you drive down 265, people are not going the speed limit? They're looking at the speed limit as a minimum, right? And so even though the speed limit, I think, is what, 60 now on 265, they're going 62, 67. All of a sudden, the normative culture is to go faster than what the actual rule is, which is the speed limit's 55. And if we're in, and sometimes when we're a teacher in the room, you know, I will never forget, I was first maybe 3 years into school, and there was a new teacher, and I walked through the room and I saw these children standing on top of the tables. And I kind of looked at the teacher and I said, I was curious about why they're standing on the tables. They said, well, they said that they could do it. And everyone was kind of doing it. So I just assumed that this school was okay for them to do. And I said, oh, I said, well, I think that it wasn't a teacher, it was a sub that hadn't been in the room before, but they just assumed because the children said that they did it, that that was just a thing that happened. And so, you know, we just really encourage, you will not know all of the things in a certain studio. You will not know all the conversations they had. You don't know maybe that they can get a stool and stand on it to put the thinnest brown stair at the top of the tower of brown stairs. And so you will be like, I don't know what the process is for that. We probably should talk to Tracy together, you know, and so we can learn together. And that is okay to do. But you also don't need to assume that because it's happening, it may be okay. Even at the teens level, you know, it's sometimes they'll say like, yeah, we can use our phones anywhere in the building, or as long as we're on carpet. And they may really feel like that because they've seen other people do it, but it really isn't. It's just a culture that's developed. It's not really what's happening. So always feel free to ask. It is, you know, when you have all of these very independent humans working together, you're going to see differences. And it's okay to say, is it okay for them to X, Y, Z, etc. And we really try, you know, like if we ask the children to bring one small dessert, we don't bring, you know, a big cupcake for our lunch and eat that in front of them. You know, if the children don't drink coffee in the studio, we don't drink coffee in the studio. And some of you are like, okay, I'm out. Come on, please. You could leave and go have some coffee in the media center anytime you want. You can take a break and go have coffee. But we do try to only do and have those same ethical standards that we ask of them to do for us as well. For example, I interviewed a woman that wanted to teach at our school, and I said, you know, like, we don't have double standards, and if we want to talk to a child, we stand up and we walk over to them. And she said, what? And I said, what's your worry? And she goes, well, I mean, you mean I have to get up and walk over to children all day long? I can't just yell their names, they come to me. And I said, yeah, we don't do that. And she goes, oh, I can't do that. And I said, well, I appreciate you coming in. Thanks for stopping by, you know. But we do try to be really consistent with that as well. Any thoughts or comments about any of those items? Because I could talk all day. Tracy knows it. Tracy and I could talk all day. Brooklyn, go ahead.
What you were saying is kind of similar to the name situation where we're not saying Mr. or Miss, we're using the first name. Like it just makes the child feel as an equal and like an equal human, and not just the child or, you know, the class. Right.
Yeah. And we make mistakes, and we tell children when we make mistakes, you know, and we are okay with you pointing out something that you are concerned about or that seems different to you. I heard you say this, but yesterday I saw a teacher do this. You're like, thanks for bringing that to our attention. You know, like, I didn't even realize I was doing that. So you are okay to question us at any time. I really feel, and I think all of us do, that it makes us the strongest community because we want people, all of us to be accountable to each other. Hey there, Valerie, go ahead.
So I love this reinforcement of Montessori method, because I notice at my house, I'll go in the other room to talk to my kid as much as possible. Yeah. And when we're at my mom and dad's house, my mom yells from one end of the house to the other and just expects me or her or my dad just come and stick our head in. Yes, what did you need? And it's just really interesting, the way that we've internalized this kind of at home. Like, go
Yeah.
and talk to the person you want to talk to. Don't scream across, like, that's just not
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
So I like the reinforcement both at home and in the studio.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really good point. Anyone want to take this one? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. What is generally known as discipline in traditional schools is not activity, but immobility and silence. It is not discipline, but something that festers inside a child, arousing his rebellious feelings. Dr. Maria Montessori.
That stir up anything for anybody that they want to share? Sometimes, you might be in the studio and it might feel really loud. And we do this too. I was saying this to a teacher that just took on a lead teaching position at the school. And I said, the studio looks great. What do you attribute to the success? And she goes, it doesn't feel great to me. And I'm like, oh, like, come out here, just stand and watch, because sometimes we just feel like when there's noise or movement, we've been conditioned to think that something's wrong, right? And that's that preparation of the adult. We have to reset that paradigm again and recognize that that is okay. We want young people, and we want young people to question us. We want them to share their emotions. We want them to help them to do it in a healthy way. Sometimes they don't always, but we want to support them, knowing that if they are really upset, maybe that's because we haven't given them a way to communicate that fit their need for that time period. And some other adult supports are that modeling behavior instead of setting rules. We try not to use the word policy at our school or rules. Sometimes the studio will say these are our ground rules, or they'll say there are social commitments. Usually they'll use different words to review that. And so, if you're not sure, instead of saying, well, what's the rule on this? You can say, so what have you all agreed to as your community, right? And it just helps to not make it so black and white, because most of us know it's a lot more gray than that. Discipline, instead of discipline, interdiscipline. So if I know that, I'm trying to support this child who, they leave their rug out every time they're finished with the material. And if I say to them every time, don't forget your rug, don't forget your rug, then they're not developing that own interdiscipline. If I just hold and see, oftentimes another child will say like, hey, so-and-so, there's not a place for my rug. And they're like, oh, I forgot my rug, And so the more we let that to happen, that self-regulation piece, helping them to know how to self-regulate, whatever that is, like if it's cleaning up after themselves, washing their hands before, after they eat, with all the new norms of COVID, or if it's, realizing that they're getting frustrated and I want to help them to find ways to regulate that can be independent, so they don't need that adult or that other person to make them feel better about it. We try to support discipline through restorative justice practices, which depend more on the community than they do on the individual. And so, if there was a situation that happened, the days all run together. I'm not sure if it was today or yesterday or the day before, but the child had marked in a table. I think they really just, got involved in what it was they were doing. I'm not sure they were even frustrated at the time, but they put these big scratches, and I can't remember what word they wrote. It was like and or that or something. And so, one of the adults was working with them through that process, and they decided to write a letter home so they could brainstorm what they could do to make this better for their community, if they were going to try to sand it or what their process. And they decided to present it back to the group and talk to the group about what they could do to make that beautiful again. And so, we want to try to find ways for children to feel empowered to work through whatever the problem was, or the decision that they made, and then it becomes more natural or logical instead of I'm in trouble, which is something we don't want young people to feel, and it's not something we want to do. And same with conflict resolution. We want, if a young person is feeling like this person took their material or they took their favorite pencil, of course, in many of those cases, you'll have to defer to the adult, but sometimes you'll be able to just say, you're really upset and you want this person to know that you weren't finished. It takes some practice to not choose sides. We don't listen to the sides. We don't say, okay, you talk first. Okay, you talk first. We try to get them to talk to each other. That could be a whole PIP workshop in itself. So we'll leave it at that for tonight. But oftentimes, just by saying, it seems like you really are trying to tell them, you didn't want them to do that. And sometimes just giving them the words to talk to each other can help to minimize the situation. Go ahead, Tracy.
Yeah, I just wanted to elaborate a little bit on that, because just like in the situation that you mentioned, that took more time, right, than that moment. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like it's really important to know, if you are the person supporting in the room, to really always feel like you can defer to another adult. And it doesn't absolutely have to be the one in that space. If there is a staff member nearby, any person that is a staff member would be better, just able to guide and help support that with you, so you don't feel like you have to do that alone. So I just wanted to throw that out there, because obviously many of these situations are going to last beyond that moment. But even in that moment, just know that you can grab someone to support you.
Yeah, you won't always know all of the exceptionalities and positive attributes of every learner in the studio. And if you're familiar with the term neurodivergent, sometimes you'll try to handle something like it's no big deal, but to this particular child, it's a really big deal. Because the way that their brain sees this situation is unique to them sometimes, or unique to their learning style, or unique to that situation. And so, don't hesitate and to get us involved, because, we'll only tell you what you need to know. You won't always know all the information. So we'll always be able to help. Amanda, did you want to share?
No, I'm in the process of making dinner while also doing this workshop. So one of my tools hit my hand.
Oh, okay. No worries. No worries. Now you made me hungry, but otherwise. So that was the kind of preparing the adult part. And so the second part of, being a sub is the preparation of the environment. So we do ask, if at all possible, to try to show up 20 minutes before the kids come in and try to hang around for 20 minutes. Those of you that have been here know that the work that the teacher does is tireless. And now you add all the COVID protocols of sanitizing to that, and it's even more so. And so most of the studios have created processes for that. We're doing all the things. But if you can do that, we really appreciate it, so that you can help to make sure the environment's prepared for the next day. Go ahead, Brooklyn.
Will we be able to, if we have a child enrolled, will they be able to come with us 20 minutes early so that we can be there?
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways that can happen. If that's the case for your child, it depends on the age of the child, and if the extended learning program has ability. Sometimes the child has never been in the extended learning program before, and it's just not a good fit. So we say, just come at the time that you drop off your child, and then we'll work it out from there. So just, you can talk to Tracy about it, and then we can help make a plan as well.
Okay.
So, why the environment is so important. Oh, Amanda, did you have something else, or is that a cooking taboo there?
No, I actually do have something.
Okay, sure.
Kind of to the last point, of course, I assume not. But if we have a child enrolled and we are called to sub, will we be able to sub within our child's studio?
It really just depends on the child and the situation. So we would, we'll ask you before you leave today. Tracy's going to drop the form for you to add information. And most of the time that conversation starts with the teacher of your child, and just say, what do you think? Do you think it would be okay for me to do that. And you'll just start that dialogue, and you and the teachers might feel like, yes, it would be no problem. Or you might feel like, well, let's have them just have you in the building for a while in another studio, and then we'll try after they've seen you in the building with another studio. So that would be the best place to start.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So as you look at these pictures, you'll see that everything has its place, and you may not know this, but everything goes back to that place. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily that in any of the studios will say, no, that's not the right place or anything. But it's on purpose put back into the same spaces every day, so it begins to have that sensorial view. And sometimes even a young 3-year-old will walk in the studio, and if something's not where it was when they left the day before, they will put it there, even if the teacher thought it was a better place where they moved it to. And so even in those very young studios, oftentimes when they move things, they talk about it as a community. We put this plant here, but we noticed it was right in the way of our walking. So we're going to move this plant over here. Let's all watch. Let's see how we're going to pick this up carefully. This will just be an adult thing, and they'll make a big process about it. But that's part of that preparing the environment, because all of those things in order and complete and in their own place helps to really make not just the room function well, but for some children, neurodivergent or not, they will feel like out of space, out of place if things aren't where they were when they came in. And so there's daily schedules, and each studio, hopefully, they're working on it right now, will have a subfolder. It'll probably be something they'll email you, or it might be something that will be in a physical form that they'll give you. So when you come for that few minutes early, or even if you need a few minutes before you start to look over it, that will talk about when the different things are that happen during the day. When the work time is, when the small group or large group lesson time, how snack works in that environment, how lunch works. And in almost all the environments, there's a seating chart now for lunch. So we can do, contract tracing, as well as most studios do two times for lunch. Knowing how job responsibilities work at the end of the day, what your responsibilities are you sharpening pencils? Is the co-teacher sharpening pencils? So there'll be kind of a folder that depicts all of that. So it will help you. And for some of you, that's what really helps me. So don't fret. If Tracy or I call you to sub, you're like, I really have never been in the studio before. I need a few minutes to understand the process. Just tell us, and we'll make sure we give you a time and place to do that. So then, we also encourage, so if you are in your child's studio or in a studio that you've been in before, you might start having some feelings about a particular child or a situation. And we really encourage you to come in with an open mind. You might have your child saying to you every day, like, so-and-so's mean to me. And you've decided never to do anything about that. And then today you're in that studio with so-and-so. And we're asking you to come in with an open mind. Of course, you would never talk to that child about that situation. But you might find that you need to have that conversation with the staff member before the day starts because it's on your mind. Or you're just going to give them, you're going to help refrain from any judgments and just watch and just be present. And you might find that you learned something new when you did that from what you thought was happening. Being aware of your own manner in the studio. For some children, noises from shoes or smells from perfumes can really affect them. And so really being conscious about the way you're moving throughout the room, any smells, even things like, what's it called? The scents that some people use that are more natural.
Essential oils.
Essential oils. For some people, that can be really hard. For some children. And so just being really aware of your own manner and way. If you're really tall, you might want to be, down on their level a little bit more, sitting on a stool. If you're really short and they can't even tell that you're not a child in the room, you might, want to stand on stilts. No, I'm kidding. In that direction, you just be yourself and it will all work out. So, really, we ask of you, the number one thing that we need that second person in the room for when that other teacher is out is safety. and just be another set of eyes, and then letting the teacher know, like, I think something's happening over here, or should this child be underneath this table, or this teen seems really frustrated today and sad, and I'm wondering if there's something else we should do to support them. We talk about, what you'll see the staff doing is having their back to the wall whenever they can, so that they can see the rest of the room. So if you go over to a child to talk to them, you're trying to turn your back so that your back's against the wall and you're talking to them to the side so you can still see what's happening in the rest of the room. So it's a really good strategy to use if you haven't been in there before, especially if a teacher's giving a lesson to a group of 5 or 6 at the rug and you're kind of up and watching. You can just kind of, not robotically, but just kind of keep your back to the wall as you move around so you can kind of see the bigger part of that. The adult commitments for each age level, can you drop those in too, Tracy? Thanks. So those are all like the early ed, the 6 to 9, the 9 to 12, the teens have all kind of created what they feel like are the commitments that they live by at that level. And so, one thing that we, is that all of the commitments is just a low voice. And so we really try to only talk so the person we're talking to can hear us. Now, there's a few of us in the building, like Emily, if you know her, that just don't fall into that category. And she'll be the first to tell you. We remind Emily, because that's just not her thing, to lower her voice. But otherwise, we all really work to keep our voice at a level so just the person that we're talking to can hear us. And ask for specific things that you can do. For some of you, you really want to know, like, what can I do? And just say, what can I do? If you want to do more, if you want to do less, just talk to that person. Sometimes the early childhood studios, you might be playing a game called I Spy, or might be doing some songs if you're open to that. And so you're reading a book over in the corner so children can come and join if they want to. And so really just, if you want to get more involved, we want to help you to feel useful. We just want you to reach out, let us know. Any comments or questions right now? So some of these are similar to what we've already talked about. That whole, how do we support balance of respecting, questioning their freedom. I've seen you up here for a while, and I thought the teacher had asked you to go ahead and choose something different. And so I'm wondering if I can help in any way. Or just letting the teacher know, like, they're still there and I'm not sure. They keep looking at me, and so I'm not sure what to do about it. Direct support versus indirect support. Sometimes in the younger studios, you'll see that we give them help with putting on their jacket, for instance, by laying it on the ground with the neck of the jacket by their feet and putting their arms in and flipping them over. And so they can do it by themselves. So that's more of an indirect support because we're showing them something that they can then do themselves. Versus direct support. You're really frustrated. Your mom's there. You want to get your coat on and leave. Let me help, And so we have to decide when we're going to give that direct support, when we give that indirect support. So how to be a super parent as a sub. The first thing you'll do, and I'll go ahead, if you haven't dropped it already, Tracy, go ahead and drop that questionnaire. That it's a fillable document. It's a PDF. Thank you, Prana. She's a whiz. I don't even know how she does all the things. And that will be your key. And so once you've filled that out, the next step that happens is we use your birth date to do background checks. And so when we have a minute to breathe and we're not sending home children with a cough or a sniffle, we will be doing background checks over the next week. And then you'll get on the sheet. And then the next step is, if you've already subbed some, Tracy might just start texting you, hello, we need somebody for this morning or for Wednesday. And start setting you up. If you haven't subbed before, she'll be saying to you, hey, how can I get you in the building? It seems like in your notes, you said you were interested in any age studio, and I would love to start you down in the islands, just, getting to know those studios a little bit. Can you come in for an hour or two this week or next week just to get to know the environment? And that way you won't be, and sometimes we don't always have that luxury, but we love to try to help you come in a little bit beforehand. Tracy, what else do you want to say about that? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
I think it's in that particular form, it's really important with the other information, letting us know when you're available. If there's a consistent time you're not available, that's really important. And I just want to say that I answer all communication, I'll be honest, but the primary way that I would be communicating with you would be by text. So your phone number, which is required on the form, but so hopefully that works for you. But I put my number in there. So if you see that, or if you want to text me anytime and ask me any questions, I'm always open to that conversation. But just knowing that it would probably be by text, unless it's something we've done ahead of time, scheduled out. So anything helpful that you can tell me, like, please don't text me after, 7 o'clock or whatever, would be really helpful for me. So.
Yeah, great. Go ahead. Okay. Don't you go by Katie? I keep wanting to say that. Okay. But I was like, maybe I'm forgetting. It's just been too long. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay, Barbara. I had a question. So, is there like a deadline for responding to being a sub in the morning?
Oh, you mean like if she texted you at 7 o'clock and, so oftentimes, go ahead, Tracy.
No, that's fine. Sorry if you were going to say that. But what I was going to say was, oftentimes I'll go off of that. We're reaching out to lots of folks. So to see who is available. So if I don't hear back from you pretty quickly, then I'm probably, also communicating with other parents who are available. I don't know if that's what you were going to say, Barbara, but
yeah. And I was just also going to add, like, if you can't, don't worry about it. Just say, sorry, I'm not available.
Right.
Don't feel like you can't say that. We'd rather know. So we're like, we still waiting to hear from these 5 people. Not that we want you to be tagged to your phone all morning with your children. But if you know for sure, sometimes people will let us know, like, hey, Tracy, I'm going to be out for 2 weeks. That's perfect. And we will do our best. Sometimes with 60 staff members, they'll go rogue and start calling people on their own. But we really try to help them go through Tracy, so we're not making several calls to you. And if that does happen, please let us know so we can help to minimize that, because it's not our intention. But they all, want to help, and, they want to try to reach out to people on their own. Go ahead, Carradine.
I haven't been in subbing since the whole COVID protocol, so I just wanted to know when I am coming in, because what I used to do is when I was coming into sub, I'd bring the kids into extended, and of course come in through the front door, sign in, and then head to my studio.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure with the way things are. Do we do things differently if that is the case? Are we having to let them know we're coming in first, or how are you sort of navigating that?
Yeah, it's a good question, and one of which we probably haven't clearly thought out enough about. But as I'm hearing you say that, I think that, what often happens is this family still goes through car line for their child, and then they'll come through the door and do the other. If you have to be here earlier and we've made a plan with Tracy for your kids to come in earlier, then it'll be fine for them to come in through the front. But in most cases, it's just going to be fine for you to go ahead and drop your kiddo off in whatever car line they're in, and then come in after that. And that will just help to minimize. We just try to reduce the movement throughout the building. So did you want to add anything else with that, Tracy? I know we've had some of that already this year.
Yeah, I apologize. I was answering questions in the chat, so I didn't hear all of that. But I think it was about your own children, like in coming in, because we're asking you to come in the front. Yeah, I think sometimes, especially since now we're reversed with our hours. So if there are younger children, obviously if you're subbing down in elementary and you have older children, making a plan with their studio could also be a thing, to see, like, so I'm coming into sub, but like Barbara said, most likely it would just be like, wait until your kids are able to go through the room.
And it's fine. We could find coverage for that 30 minutes or whatever. And then Tracy will just let them know you'll be there at 9 instead of 8:30 or whatever. So yeah. Thanks, Karen. Go ahead, Katie.
I also wondered, maybe you covered this in the very beginning, about volunteer hours. I know we're required. Is there a way that subbing is there a way that subbing would count as volunteer hours?
Yes. So
Okay.
let me go back to this other screen a second. So some people choose not to get paid and volunteer instead, which you're welcome to do. And we don't ever hold anyone's feet over the fire for their volunteer hours, and oftentimes they're doing it in different ways to help staff out with that. But yes, the short answer to that is yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Brooklyn.
I can't access the links because I'm on my phone. Can I get those emailed to me?
Yeah, we're going to email all of this out probably tomorrow
Okay.
afternoon or Thursday morning with the workshop, and it'll give it to our whole school community. So for sure, that'll be coming soon.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we're going to give you guys a little bit of a head start. So here's some of the COVID information we wanted to share with you. The mask thing, it's amazing. I mean, 98% of these kids are doing it really, really well. But we do ask them, if you do see someone, you just say, like, move it over your nose. That's the most common thing. Of course, if they're eating or drinking, and they should be at the snack area, wherever that is in that studio, or away from children if they're drinking. So, following all this cleaning protocols and lunch procedures of the studio. Ensure that learners are 6 feet apart outside if they're without their masks. If they're going to sit down with someone, we just tell them to put their mask back on. If you notice any COVID symptoms, I had this young person, I said, it sounds like you're really congested. And they go, no, I'm not. My mom said I'm not congested. And I said, I hear you. But, I just want to make sure we're going to keep everyone healthy. And it is hard. We have an amazing group of families that have been so upfront. I can't tell you how many emails we get a day, maybe 24, from families saying they woke up, they had a little bit of headache, we're going to keep them home. We are so appreciative of that. And then sometimes, like, they've kept them home and then they still have this lingering cough and they're not sure. And we're not trying to, there's just a lot of illness going around right now. And most of it in our community is just not COVID. We still have only had one positive COVID in the building and one person quarantined from that. So we are really, really thankful and really lucky too. We're hoping that luck and all the things that we're doing is going to continue to keep those numbers low. But anyway, please notify a teacher if you do hear a symptom that we should address, especially for those little bitties. It's hard to see or know, underneath that mask. If you're fully vaccinated for COVID, send us a copy so that we know if you're a close contact at some point. At this point, for the staff, we are following the CDC guidelines that we are not making a close contact if someone's fully vaccinated. Now, we know that breakthrough infections are increasing, and that's why the boosters are coming. And so if you want to be like, I want to be notified if I'm a close contact either way, just let the teacher know that in that studio. Remind Tracy or I about that. We have no idea what's going to happen next week or tomorrow. And so you may be subbing one day and not be back for a couple of weeks. Feel free to reach back out. Hey, I was in there last week and I saw there was a few new cases on the data field on the website. I just want to make sure I'm not a close contact. Like, don't worry about it. Reach out at any time. We're happy to help with that. So there are resources, the sub-information sheet obviously has some resources on it. The communication hints handout. I have all these books in my space. If you want just 100 of them, 200 maybe books. If you want to borrow something, you're welcome to send me an email. I can help you check it out and bring it to you. So give you ideas about things. Oftentimes families will email me and say, which book should I start with, and etc. So I'm happy to give you any of that. Obviously the Studio Notes Home will help with most of those pieces. Other workshops like this that we'll do this year, so many things. As the new parent said to me, like, you guys communicate so much at the school. I cannot read everything. I said, I'm sorry. He said, no, I love it. It's just, wow, I've never been, we do communicate a lot, but those are all good ways and places for you to find out more information too. So, and you're making memories, and you're really, we want you to have fun when you're here. And so we're grateful. And we want to leave these last few minutes to answer any questions or to clarify anything or to hear from any of you of things that other families might need to hear. So we are so appreciative. Amanda.
Hey there. So real quick, I've already filled out and turned in my survey answers, but it was pretty hard to fill out because the Shining Mind links was covering some of the questions and I wasn't able to move the links out of the way. So just in case.
Good to know. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
Barbara, there's a question in the chat.
Okay.
Asking about how to get the vaccine information to the school.
Yeah, so on that form down at the bottom, it says you can email it to Kelly Coots, so K Coots, Coots. She's at the Curve Desk at shiningminds.com. Yeah, thank you. Jordan?
Hi, so I just had a question. This is my child's first year at this school. So obviously I'm interested in being able to sub specifically in her studio. And so I was just wondering what the process is like to be able to do that. Because I remember I kind of missed the part earlier.
Okay, no worries. Yeah. So the first thing is just reach out to her teachers. I think it was a her. Did you say? Sorry. And just say, hey, what do you think about me subbing in the studio? And again, they might say to you, why don't you sub in one of the other level studios first, just so that she can kind of get used to you being nearby. And let's see how that goes. And so they might be like, yeah, I mean, she seems like she'd be fine. We talked to her about it. Do you have any worries? So they'll have those kind of conversations with you. And then you can let Tracy know like which areas, other studios you might be interested in subbing in as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Jordan. Andy? The powerful unmute.
Yeah, the powerful unmute. I'm really horrible at this. My son says, I will never Zoom with you. Who's doing fine. He said to say hello to everybody.
Oh,
he's busy.
Spencer's an alumni. Andy is a past parent at CM, so we are fortunate and thankful.
That sort of is my question because I was in Friday helping with Picture Day. I can never stop volunteering.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to observe that I was so impressed with how everything was handled as far as with COVID, since I had not been in the school except snuck in to check out CASA.
Right.
So that's my heart.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to say I was just so impressed with how the kids performed with the mask and everything. And not being a parent currently at the school, what is the times that the kids are in? Because I know there's been some switcheroos since I was last in the school. So what time is, and I'll probably mainly be in Monsoon Typhoon in the upper teens. But what time are they getting in? What time would I need to be getting in to support?
Yeah, they're all good questions. I'm just going to start with early ed and then go forward, just so everyone has that knowledge. So the drop-off time for early ed is 7:55. I'm going to see if Prana or Tracy corrects me on any of this. 7:55 to 8:05, and so they start their day at 8:05 and they end at 2:50. And then 6 to 9 is about the same. They start at 8:10 until 2:50, and 9 to 12 is 8:30 is when the drop-off time starts. So they're 8:40 to 3:10. Any corrections there, Prana? I saw you. Okay, good. It's good so far. And then the teens program is 9 to 3:45. 3:30.
Right.
3:30. 3:30. Darn it! I was almost there. Almost had them all. So they start dropping off at 8:50. So that would be good to put on one of these documents. Thanks for mentioning that, Andy. We're all still getting used to the new times. It was so easy before. It was just automatic. Now, not so much. Amanda?
Yes. Okay. So, of course, car rider line, as mentioned. I'm going to assume you probably have like your experienced teachers, everybody's faces helping with that. But if we were called to sub because one of them were out, how would that process work as far as like the car rider one? Like, would we just kind of be the person walking up and down saying, who are you here for? Things like that.
Yeah, in most cases, and there's so many different scenarios with that, and the different levels do car lines so differently. So I would just say that you'll just ask the teacher, and if they ask you to do something that you're not comfortable with or you're not sure about, just let them know, can I do something different? I mean, they're not going to put you in a situation to release a child that they don't know who their parent are. But at this point, most of that just works so autopilot. There's not that much of a need for that. So just feel free if you get into a situation ever and you're like, this doesn't feel right to me, or I'm not sure what to do, just ask for a different position and we'll help you out.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh. What else? Anybody else? Yeah, Brooklyn?
Will we be able to work in the nursery, or will that be a separate with the parents involved in the nursery?
Yeah, so the nursery does have subs. There are just lots of hoops to jump through to be a sub in the nursery. So there's physicals and drug testing, etc. So if that is something you do want to do and you want to be a regular sub at the nursery, just email me personally and I'll get you set up for that. Joe?
How soon do you expect to get subs into the studios?
Well, we've already had them. So Carrie, bless her heart, has been super sub this past couple weeks. We really appreciate her. And so, we do have staff out every single day, either with their own children or because they have a symptom or waiting for a PCR test, etc. So, we're doing it right now.
So, yeah. So once the background check's done, that's kind of about it. So,
yeah.
And I've had that. It better not have changed.
That's right. You'll be like, what? Yeah, right.
So, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have anything else? Well, we are so appreciative and so grateful, and thank you for being here. And we want to get you set up and helping. Our goal is to keep the building open all year long. So, it's a necessity. We're not going to be able to do this without each of you. So I know that if you have a day off or if you have other roles in your life, this is another thing, and and you have to learn all these new pieces of it. So we know that it's not easy, and we appreciate it that you're open. And we can't wait to see you in the building. There's Tracy's number again. She's already marketing, lobbying.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you again. And there's my number. I've already heard from a couple of people. But just in case you have any other questions, you can always contact me there.
And they can text you right now with their name, right? If they want to get you set up. Yeah.
Several have.
Yeah, awesome. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. Have a great evening. Thanks for joining. Thanks for being a part. Thank you. Take care. See you later. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Barbara. This is always very informative. I've done a number of volunteer workshops over the years, and it's all like every time I hear it, I pick up something new, and I just wanted to kind of listen in and see what else new I picked up this year.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Valerie.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.